This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Friday, March 29th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A cryptocurrency pioneer has been sentenced to 25 years in prison. I'm Jackie Quinn.
High regards for a fallen New York City police officer. I'm Clayton Neville.
There's word that Ford will slash the number of hourly workers at a factory in Dearborn, Michigan that builds the F-150 Lightning. I'm Rita Foley.
A federal judge in Texas has accused the major banking industry groups and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce of venue shopping in their lawsuit against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I'm Norman Hall.
For the first time in 27 years, the U.S. is changing how it categorizes people. I'm Donna Warder.
It's a bittersweet Easter for chocolate lovers around the world as cocoa prices rise. I'm Karen Chamas.
All ahead on America in the Morning. A judge has sentenced disgraced cryptocurrency entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried to prison. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
Entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried has received a 25-year sentence for fraud and conspiracy. The 32-year-old was found guilty in November of using billions of dollars from FTX depositors, customers, investors, and lenders to gain influence and dominance in the cryptocurrency space. That included buying luxury properties in the Caribbean, private airplanes, and paying bribes to foreign officials. The judge said the sentence reflected there's a risk that this man will be in a position to do something very bad in the future, and said the jail time was intended to disable that ability. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Cleanup of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland is set to begin. Correspondent Sagar Meghani has this update.
Heavy machinery is heading for Baltimore to start work on recovering from the Key Bridge collapse. Barges are carrying cranes, which will be used to remove the twisted metal and concrete that fell into the Patapsco River. It's part of the broader effort to move the cargo ship that rammed the bridge, recover the remaining victims of the collapse, and find out what went wrong.
The best minds in the world are coming together to collect the information that we need to move forward with speed and safety.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore on WMAR as the state asked the Biden administration for $60 million in emergency funding to start the work. President Biden has said the federal government will pay the full cost of rebuilding the bridge. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Slain police officer memorialized. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. We may see some Easter snowfall, at least for one particular area of the country. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy is in with today's forecast.
The storm in the east that brought another soaking rain to the region will continue to cause damp conditions through the coastal areas from Massachusetts to Maine. There could even be a little snow developing on the western side of the storm from New Hampshire into northern Maine with an inch or two in the mountains. Otherwise, it's going to be a nice day for Friday for most areas of the eastern U.S., from the Great Lakes into the southeast and most of the Plains states. There'll be a few showers crossing Indiana and Ohio this morning before moving into West Virginia, but it will be dry much of the day. There'll be some rain and snow showers as well in the northern plains from North Dakota into Minnesota as an area of low pressure moves through. Some of the snow in North Dakota could produce an inch or two. And this will lead to some more rain and snow this weekend through the Great Lakes into the northeast. The central and southern plains to the south of the low pressure will see plenty of sunshine today, with the afternoon temperatures climbing nicely into the 60s, 70s, and 80s. This will be about 5 to 15 degrees above the historical average. Heading out west, there are two areas of low pressure to start the day off the west coast. The first system is producing showers again today near the coast in Washington and Oregon, but the system will be weakening overall. And the second and increasingly stronger low pressure will take over as it dives southeastward toward the central California coast. This system will be hitting the region with moderate to heavy rain and snow in the Sierra Nevada late in the day and tonight. There can be a few rumbles of thunder as well, and rain amounts will be widespread 1 to 2 inches, with snow in the Sierra Nevada up to 2 feet. This storm will continue to spread rain and snow eastward this weekend into the Southwest and Rockies. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A fallen New York City police officer is being honored by some of the country's top leaders. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The 34-year-old suspected gunman's charged with murder of a police officer, attempted murder, and criminal possession of a weapon. This after Officer Jonathan Diller was shot in Queens after what began as a routine traffic stop. Another man in custody in connection to the shooting.
This is such a sad occasion. The only thing we can say is maybe something is going to be learned. We've got to toughen it up. We've got to strengthen it up. This should never be allowed. Things like this shouldn't take place, and to take place so often.
Former President Donald Trump met with the fallen officer's family and attended a wake yesterday.
Stephanie was just incredible. Their child, brand new, beautiful baby, sitting there innocent as can be, doesn't know how his life has been changed.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams was also at the wake and noted that he has spoken with President Biden, who offered his thoughts to the city. All flags across the state ordered to fly at half staff per the governor's request, with more services planned through the weekend. Speaking to reporters, former President Trump says police officers have to be shown more respect. I'm Clayton Neville.
Tom Henry, the mayor of Indiana's second largest city, Fort Wayne, has died a day after experiencing a medical emergency related to stomach cancer. The announcement from his office said that the mayor had passed away peacefully and came just hours after Henry's family had issued a statement saying he had entered hospice care. Henry announced his diagnosis of late-stage stomach cancer February 26th during a news conference. The mayor had begun chemotherapy at the beginning of March. He was 72 years old. Kentucky's state legislature has passed a new law changing how temporary vacancies in the U.S. Senate are filled. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
The Kentucky Senate voted 34-3 to strip their Democratic governor of his role in filling any temporary vacancy that may arise in the U.S. Senate. The legislation calls for a special election. The winner would hold the seat for the remainder of the unexpired term. Sponsor and Republican House Leader Stephen Rudy says the bill is a longtime policy stance and has nothing to do with 82-year-old Senator Mitch McConnell's decision to step down as Senate leader in November. Democrat Andy Beshear has denounced the measure. But with GOP supermajorities, the Bluegrass states, House and Senate are in a position to override a veto, much as they did in 2021, when they limited the governor's Senate picks to a three-name list provided by leaders from the same party as a senator who formerly held the seat. Both of Kentucky's U.S. senators happen to be Republicans. I'm Jennifer King.
In NCAA hoops, Clemson beat Arizona 77-72. UConn upset San Diego 82-52. It was Illinois over Iowa State 72-69. And Alabama beat North Carolina 89-87. Glory days again on Wall Street and talk of a Fed interest rate cut when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Friday Business on America in the Morning. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street, quiet this morning as the financial markets are closed for Good Friday. They are every year, but wow, March is in the books for stocks, and so is the first quarter. It was fantastic for investors.
Farewell, Q1. It was good to know you. Very good, in fact. All-time closing highs. Our fifth straight monthly gain as we wrap up March and Q1. Best Q1 for the S&P since 2019. The 14th best, going all the way back to the 1920s.
CNBC's Carl Quintanilla. If you have an S&P 500 index fund in your retirement account, you should be pretty happy if you take a look this weekend. Q2 starts Monday morning, and that's no April Fool's joke. But market holidays don't mean there's no economic data coming today. It's a biggie. The latest on inflation with the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Report, the Fed's favorite measure of inflation.
We get PCE inflation on Friday. The market is closed. I think Chair Powell is also speaking on a market close, so get ready for an interesting Monday morning.
JP Morgan's Kelsey Barrow on CNBC, and she's talking about the Federal Reserve Chair and interest rate cuts.
It is the inflation data that still matters, and part of what is giving him the confidence to say, yeah, we may cut rates somewhat this year, is because he is expecting inflation to continue to slow down. And by the way, if you look at PCE inflation, both headline and core on a year-over-year basis, they have a 2 handle on it.
That PCE number out at 8:30 Eastern.
More now on a story we brought you at the top of the show. Jessica, I often think with characters like this, if they had only done it right, they would have been so much better off. Of course, we're talking about the founder of FTX.
Yes, Wall Street really paid attention to this one. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried sentenced after being found guilty of orchestrating a multi-billion-dollar fraud that prompted the collapse of his cryptocurrency exchange.
25 years, Judge Kaplan going through his reasoning behind a lot of that. And among the things he talked about was Sam Bankman-Fried's perceived lying on the stand, him knowingly committing these crimes, and said in his 30 years on the stand, he had not seen a performance like it in terms of the way he was hair splitting. He was evading certain questions. That also factored into the sentencing. He went on to talk about the risk that Sam Bankman-Fried would do this again. He said he had this PR strategy, talked about really him going out and talking to the press and a lot of reporters. He said that demonstrates that he knows how to do this and that the will is there to do this again.
CNBC's Kate Rooney. On today's watch list, markets are quiet for the Good Friday holiday, as we mentioned, but there is that big economic report coming on inflation, new in theaters for Easter weekend, Blue Fox's A Cat's Life, and the expected blockbuster from Warner Brothers, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Friday Business. Ford has announced it'll be reducing its staff at a factory in Michigan. Correspondent Rita Foley has that story.
There's word that Ford will slash the number of hourly workers at a factory in Dearborn, Michigan that builds the F-150 Lightning, the electric truck. Ford has been cutting production of the pickup. Sales of electric vehicles in the U.S. have been growing, but not as much as the industry expected. Ford sold just over 24,000 Lightnings last year. That is up 55% from 2022. But dealers are now reporting slower sales and rising inventories on the electric truck, which starts at just under $50,000. So what about the workers? Well, Ford will transfer 700 workers to the Michigan assembly plant in Wayne to build the Bronco and Ranger. 700 more workers will either take a retirement package or will accept another assignment in Southeast Michigan. I'm Rita Foley.
A Texas judge has ruled there should be a venue change in a lawsuit concerning credit card fees. That update from correspondent Norman Hall.
A federal judge in Texas has accused the major banking industry groups and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce of venue shopping in their lawsuit against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. At issue is a new regulation that slashes credit card late fees from an average of $32 to a cap of $8. The CFPB had argued the only reason banks filed their lawsuit in Texas was to increase their chance of a favorable ruling. Judge Mark Pittman agreed and said in a ruling that choosing a court for a lawsuit is not like a continental breakfast where plaintiffs get to pick and choose. Pittman transferred the case to Washington, D.C. I'm Norman Hall.
When we return on America in the Morning, the Fed's changing their policy on race after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The federal government is changing the way it categorizes race. First time in over 2 decades. Correspondent Donna Warder has details.
In an effort to more accurately count residents who identify as Hispanic or Middle Eastern or North African, questions about race and ethnicity that were previously asked on government forms will be combined into a single question, and people will have the option to pick multiple categories at the same time, such as Black, American Indian, and Hispanic. Research has shown that large numbers of Hispanic people aren't sure how to answer the race question because they understand race and ethnicity to be similar. And before, people from countries such as Lebanon, Iran, Egypt, and Syria had been encouraged to identify as white. Now they'll have the option to identify themselves in a new group. I'm Donna Warder.
The price of Chocolate Easter eggs has gone up. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports this is thanks to a reduction in global cocoa harvests.
At the famous La Bonbonnière chocolate shop in Geneva, visitors rushed to buy chocolate bunnies and eggs ahead of Easter. The shop's development director, Chantal Loubet, admits the low harvest in West Africa has had an effect on prices. The El Niño phenomenon, which has caused heat and a lack of rain, indeed caused the price of cocoa to rise, mainly in Ghana and the Ivory Coast. Although her shop doesn't use African cocoa beans, about 3/4 of the world cocoa production comes from West Africa. With a shortfall in production and high fertilizer costs, farmers in Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Cameroon are finding it difficult to survive. However, major global chocolate makers in Europe and the United States have more than passed on the rise in cocoa prices to consumers as their profits go up. I'm Karen Shamas.
Friday, March 29th, 2024. It's Good Friday. America in the Morning is produced by Alexander Hinton, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
President Biden approved $60 million in aid as Baltimore and Maryland recover from the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I'm John Stolness.
Lawyers for former President Donald Trump argue protected speech in Georgia. I'm Clayton Neville.
House Republicans are asking President Biden to testify before Congress about his family's business dealings. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Two massive movie stars battle it out in theaters this weekend. I'm Kevin Carr.
The White House is expecting a big crowd at an annual Easter celebration. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning at the National Map. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy with the Easter weekend forecast.
There are going to be two areas of low pressure to start the day off the west coast. The first system has been producing showers for a couple of days along the Washington and Oregon coast, with additional showers spreading inland through the rest of each state into the northern Rockies. And of course, the mountains have also had some snow. This low pressure will weaken today, though some showers will still be possible, especially near the coast this morning. And the second and increasingly stronger low pressure will take over as it dives southeastward into central California. This system is going to be hitting the central California coast with moderate to heavy rain developing and snow building into the Sierra Nevada late in the day, and at night there could even be a few rumbles of thunder. This storm will continue to spread rain and snow eastward this weekend into the southwest and Rockies. Meanwhile, the storm in the east that brought another soaking rain to the region will continue to cause some damp conditions through coastal areas from Massachusetts to Maine. There could even be a little bit of snow developing on the western side of the storm from New Hampshire into northern Maine, with an inch or two in some of the mountains. Otherwise, it'll be a good Friday for most areas across the eastern U.S. from the Great Lakes into the southeast and most of the plain states. There'll be a few showers crossing Indiana into Ohio this morning before moving into West Virginia, but it'll be dry much of the day. There'll also be some rain and snow showers through the northern plains from North Dakota into Minnesota as an area of low pressure moves through. Some of the snow in North Dakota could produce an inch or two. That's the weather across America. Roswell, New Mexico is looking at a warm day with plenty of sunshine and a high of 85. It'll be a windy day in Albany, New York with a mixture of clouds and sun and a high of 51. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Biden has approved $60 million in immediate aid as Maryland officials warn of a long process to undo the damage from the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. John Stolness has that story.
Let us join together in a moment of silence for those who lost their lives in the tragedy at the Francis Scott Key Bridge early Tuesday morning.
The sold-out crowd at Camden Yards in Baltimore observed a moment of silence prior to the first pitch of the Orioles season opener against the Angels yesterday. Maryland Governor Wes Moore telling WMAR the bodies of 2 workmen believed to have been on the bridge when it collapsed have been recovered.
We are thinking about the families of Dolian Castillo Cabrera and Maynor Suazo Sandoval.
8 workers had finished fixing potholes on the bridge and were waiting in their cars for the cement to dry when the ship crashed into the bridge, causing its collapse. 2 were rescued on Tuesday. Officials say wreckage will need to be cleared before the other 4 can be reached from the insides of their cars. Moore says recovering from this tragedy will require everyone's help.
We need every single Baltimorean and we need every single Marylander to join us in this work to rebuild this bridge and rebuild this city. And that work is happening as we speak.
To that end, the Biden administration has approved $60 million in immediate federal aid, but more will be needed. The president is urging Congress to pass additional funds as quickly as possible, but some Republicans are reluctant to simply hand out the money. Republican Dan Musier telling Fox Business the president should cut funding for electrical vehicles in order to help pay for it.
Yeah, it was kind of outrageous immediately for Biden to express in this tragedy the idea that he's going to use federal funds to pay for in entirety.
NTSB Marine accident investigator Marcel Muis says the recovered black box showed things were not normal on board the ship just before it crashed into the bridge.
Numerous audible alarms were recorded on the ship's bridge audio. About the same time, VDR sensor data ceased recording. However, the VDR audio continued to record using the redundant power source.
The closure of the Port of Baltimore means disruption that will be felt by thousands of dock workers and commuters, and also potential shipping delays. I'm John Stolness.
Lawyers for former President Donald Trump are pointing to a specific type of speech in their request to dismiss the charges he faces in Georgia, Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The former president and others are facing charges related to their alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election that Trump lost to President Biden. Recent focus in the Georgia case has surrounded the relationship between Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and a prosecutor that she had on the case. He's since been taken off the legal team, but this week Trump's lawyers are asking the judge to dismiss the charges based on the argument that they target political speech, which the lawyers say is protected under the Constitution.
It's the nature of the speech, the political speech, the heightened value of such, which gets this situation different than others, and the fact that it comes from then President of the United States.
Trump lawyer Steve Sato.
If all of the overt acts are nothing more than core political speech or expressive conduct, and nothing else is alleged which is not protected by the First Amendment, then you have an insufficient basis for which he has been indicted, because he's being indicted for First Amendment speech and not for unprotected speech.
Trump's team's asking for a quick decision by the judge, but it's believed the issue of protected speech may not be addressed until after the trial begins. I'm Clayton Neville.
Update to a story we brought you yesterday. A suspect is now in custody after a deadly stabbing spree in Illinois. The latest from correspondent Sue Aller.
A stabbing rampage on a quiet suburban street. Why? The motive is unclear, but what is clear is the victims, 4 in total, including a postal worker, a 63-year-old woman, a 23-year-old male, and a 15-year-old girl. The stabbing spree, which only took about 20 minutes, happened Wednesday afternoon in Rockford, Illinois. 22-year-old Kristen Soto is in custody. He faces 4 counts of first-degree murder. Authorities say he told police he was high on marijuana. He claims was given to him by one of the victims. Police Chief Carla Reed said Soto acted alone.
We have no other indications or any other reports that anyone else was involved in the events yesterday besides Soto.
Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara relayed a message from 15-year-old Jenna Newcomb's mom.
Jenna died saving her sister and her friend and protecting them from further harm.
McNamara also said that the entire community is in mourning.
These are dark days, but we as Rockfordians will get through this.
7 other people were also injured in the rampage. I'm Sue Aller.
Truck driver learns his fate in deadly crash, and House Republicans want Biden to testify. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Crypto entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced Thursday to 25 years in prison for a massive fraud on hundreds of thousands of customers that unraveled with the collapse of FTX, once one of the world's most popular platforms for exchanging digital currency. Though he described Bankman-Fried as extremely smart, U.S. District Judge Louis A. Kaplan delivered a blistering analysis of Bankman-Fried and his crimes before announcing a sentence that was half of what prosecutors sought and less than a quarter of the 105 years recommended by the court's probation officers. Quote, "There is absolutely no doubt that Mr. Bankman-Fried's name right now is pretty much mud around the world," end quote, Judge Kaplan said of the 32-year-old. Kaplan further stated that the sentence reflected the risk that Bankman-Fried, quote, "will be in a position to do something very bad in the future, and it's not a trivial risk at all," end quote. He added that the sentence was fashioned for the purpose of disabling him to the extent that he can appropriately be done for a significant period of time. The judge said he would advise the Federal Bureau of Prisons to send Bankman-Fried to a medium security prison near San Francisco because of his notoriety, his association with vast wealth, his autism, and social awkwardness are also likely to make him especially vulnerable at a high-security facility. Again, that sentence for ripping off so many investors, 25 years. America in the Morning continues. House Republicans have sent a letter to President Biden asking him to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has sent the president an invitation to answer questions directly from members of Congress. Comer alleged there's a, quote, "yawning gap between the president's public denials of any wrongdoing and evidence assembled by his committee." Comer's been alleging an influence peddling scheme based on some phone calls and dinner meetings between Joe Biden, before he was president, and his son Hunter and Hunter Biden's business associates. Biden is expected to decline. I'm Jackie Quinn.
A truck driver has been found guilty for causing a deadly 2022 crash in Colorado. Correspondent Jennifer King has a follow-up.
A jury in Weld County, Colorado, Wednesday found a Denver truck driver guilty of all 10 charges in a deadly crash in June of 2022. Police say Jesus Puebla was going 76 miles per hour on Interstate 25 north of Denver when he hit slowing traffic going less than 10 miles an hour. His truck hit an SUV and killed a family of 5 headed home to Wyoming after a birthday party. The victims included 2 parents, 2 grandparents, and a 3-month-old girl. The crash also injured another driver. Puebla was convicted of 5 counts of vehicular homicide, as well as careless driving and driving without a valid commercial license. He testified that he tried to downshift to slow the truck down, and his attorney had argued that his company was at fault for putting him in a truck with brakes that weren't working. The victim's family members said they were relieved by the verdict. I'm Jennifer King.
Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich being jailed in Russia. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports.
Guards take the American journalist from the notorious Lefortovo prison in a van for the short drive to the courthouse. The proceedings are always closed, his appeals are always rejected, and his time behind bars is always extended. Then it's back to Lefortovo. His friend, Guardian reporter Piotr Sauer, told the AP that Gershkovich is staying strong.
He remains hopeful for his release. He's not broken, neither physically or mentally. He's in good spirits.
His mother, Ella Millman, says she's proud of how her son is handling the situation.
He's standing there smiling, defiant, head is up high.
Gershkovich was arrested on espionage charges a year ago while on a reporting trip in Yekaterinburg. I'm Karen Shamas.
On this, the anniversary of Gershkovich's incarceration, correspondent Norman Hall reports he's not the only journalist behind bars in Russia.
Authorities in Russia have detained 6 journalists across the country this month, including a journalist who covered the trials of Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny for several years. Navalny died in an Arctic penal colony in February. The detentions were revealed by media freedom organization Reporters Without Borders. Antonia Favorskaya was reportedly detained and accused by Russian authorities of taking part in an extremist organization for her social media post. 2 other journalists were temporarily detained after they came to meet Favorskaya in the detention center where she was being held. I'm Norman Hall.
College hoops action in your Friday sports report on America in the Morning. Here's Robert Workman.
After a very chalky first weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament that saw only a handful of upsets and all of the 1 and 2 seeds advance for just the 5th time ever, the first night of the Sweet 16 last night flipped that script in a big way. 3 lower seeds won in the regional semifinals. The only non-upset was the rematch of last year's national final in Boston as East top seed Connecticut clobbered 5-seed San Diego State 82-52. This is the Huskies' 9th consecutive double-digit tournament victory dating back to last year's run. They'll face Illinois in Saturday's regional final, the 3-seed edging 2-seed Iowa State 72-69. Close game, but the Illini never trailed. Terrence Shannon Jr. had a game-high 29 points. In the West Regional in Los Angeles, 6-seed Clemson upended 2-seed Arizona 77-72. The Tigers dominated the first half. The Wildcats took over after intermission before Chase Hunter's 3-point play with 25 seconds left settled things.
Yeah, to be playing great here is everything for a player. I'm definitely grateful to be playing this well. I'm just happy for my team. I'm happy that I can do this for my team and my coaches.
The senior guard had a game-high 18 points. Then West number 1 North Carolina fell to 4-seed Alabama 89-87. Granton Nelson scored 19 of his season-high 24 points in the second half for the Crimson Tide. Better known as a football matchup in recent years, the Clemson-Alabama winner tomorrow will be making its first Final Four appearance ever. Tonight it's the South Regional in Dallas. 2-seed Marquette against upstart NC State, the Wolfpack, an 11-seed, followed by top-seed Houston versus Duke. And at the Midwest Regional in Detroit, number 1 Purdue squares off with 5-seed Gonzaga. Then it's Tennessee and Creighton in a 2-3 matchup. The women's Sweet 16 regional semifinals are tonight and tomorrow in Albany, New York and Portland, Oregon. Speaking of upsets, how about the Hawks knocking off the league-leading Celtics for a second straight game? 123-122 in overtime last night. A career-best 44 for DeJounte Murray.
That's the best team in the league. We competed. We didn't use being tired or anything, a back-to-back as an excuse. We came out and competed, and these are the games I want to be a part of.
Baseball's opening day, the World Series champion Rangers got a walk-off 10-inning win over the Cubs, while the NL champion Diamondbacks scored 14 times in the 3rd inning to crush the Rockies. That's the most any team has scored in an inning on opening day in the modern era. Red Sox got by the Mariners. Tyler O'Neill homered. If that sounds familiar, the Boston outfielder has now gone deep in a record 5 straight opening days. Shutouts for the Tigers and the Guardians, AL wins for the Orioles, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Twins, NL success for the Dodgers, the Padres, the Reds, and the Pirates. That's Friday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, getting educated at the White House. That and more after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. 2 massive movie stars will duke it out on the silver screen this weekend. Here's entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr.
Legendary Pictures' Monsterverse attempts to get even bigger with the release of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire.
You feel like going for a ride?
I thought you'd never ask.
Buckle up, you beautiful people!
In this new kaiju movie, the 2 titans have to work together to stop a new threat brewing in the Hollow Earth, ready to break free and destroy the world.
Oh my God. That's not just a signal. That's a call for war.
Now, I love a good Monster Smackdown movie, which is why I thoroughly enjoyed Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019 and Godzilla vs. Kong 3 years ago. Though to do a proper Monster Smackdown, you kinda have to have the monsters smacking down, and that doesn't always happen here.
The last time those 2 met up was almost the end of Kong.
The struggle with Godzilla x Kong is the film takes so much time with the disposable human characters spouting gobbledygook meant to explain why these titans are fighting and which new ones they're fighting. The film gets bogged down in its own minutia.
What is that?
That's not Kong.
Yes, it certainly offers a spectacle you want from a movie like this, and honestly, that's why I'm watching. But the connective tissue is overworked and downright silly at times.
What else were we wrong about?
Come for the fighting, but don't expect much else. Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire gets 3 bananas out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
The White House is set to host the annual tradition of the Easter egg roll. Correspondent Sagar Meghani takes a look at what's in store for this year's event.
Some 40,000 people are anticipated to be on the South Lawn for the Easter egg roll, 10,000 more than last year, as the White House continues an old tradition.
It began a long time ago, 1878.
The first president who did so was a guy named Rutherford B. Hayes.
Presidents since have followed.
I want to welcome you to the White House today. Welcome to your house. Happy Easter!
There's the actual rolling of the eggs.
On your mark,
get set.
This year, Jill Biden's continuing her educational theme, what she calls eggucation, with various stations helping kids learn about farming, healthier eating, exercise, and more. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
America in the Morning, this Good Friday, March 29th, 2024, is produced by Alexander Hinton, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.